that's nice. Well done, well done.
We planned this.
All right, welcome. We're going to have a panel discussion tonight, the first of two this weekend. And this one is going to be more based around spiritual stuff, spirits, ghosts, that kind of thing related to the Ouija board. And we can talk about other things as well. Tomorrow night's panel is going to be the collectors. So we're going to talk more about, you know, the logistics, the collections, the history, and stuff like that. So, you know, kind of tailor your questions. This next hour is about you guys. There's not a lot planned. We're going to get discussions going and all kind of share alike. If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll point, stand up, shout it out loud so everybody can hear it, and we'll make this a fun hour. First, let's go down the line. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just, you know, your background and your connection to the Ouija board real quick, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe we can start with you, Darren.
Yeah, my name is Darren.
Vaughn?
There we go. I'm Darren Evans. I'm a paranormal researcher from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Back in the mid-'80s, I started experimenting with Ouija boards and had hundreds of sessions, and actually found a very strange double-sided Ouija board that had Zozo inscribed on one side. And so that's how my involvement with the Ouija phenomena began years ago, with my sessions and experiences with this whole Zozo phenomenon.
Karen Dahlman.
Hi, I'm Karen Dahlman, and I have experience with the Ouija board since 1973. Santa Claus gave it to me, and I'll tell you a lot more about it tomorrow. And my work is that I write books with the help of my spirit friends, and I speak to guides, angels, spirit guides, all kinds of ethereal beings, and I'll share that with you tomorrow as well.
Yeah, Darren and Karen will both be speaking tomorrow morning, so be sure to check them out. John Zaffis.
Hi.
How are you? Good. That rash clearing up yet? Or,
Yeah, it's getting there.
Good.
It's getting there.
Keep with the salve every day.
Every day.
Yep.
You gonna help?
Well, I helped put the rash there. I might as well help clear it up.
Would you like to elaborate on that, Jeff?
I think we're live. We should probably
Clean this up.
clean this up.
Yeah, clean it up. John Zaffis, paranormal investigator. Been involved with all kinds of different things, and just different things tying in with Ouija and all different things paranormal, and be interested in talking about anything anybody's interested in on any of the topics.
Not for nothing, dude.
Not for nothing.
John is up tomorrow afternoon as well, so you'll hear from him. Rosemary and Guiley.
I'm a paranormal and metaphysical researcher, author, and investigator, 60 books. My first exposure to the Ouija was as a kid. I've used it in investigation and in experiments. I've done one book, Ouija Gone Wild, where we look at the crazy side of the Ouija board. Done a book with John called Haunted by the Things You Love. We talk about Ouija cases in there that really go berserk. And then Darren Evans and I are going to be collaborating on his Zozo experiences. So my exposure to the Ouija board really runs the gamut.
Right. Of course, Chip Coffey, who will be doing a talk tonight and also a seance, which is going to be amazing. Chip Coffey.
My name is Chip Coffey. I'm a psychic and a medium, and my first experience with Ouija was we played with the board when I was about 12 years old and lived in a haunted house in upstate New York, and I am going to be talking more about that tonight. So see you later, guys.
Sounds good. All right. Let's start with the million-dollar question. Do you think the board, and this is for anyone, do you think the board is something safe to use at all? Safe?
It's been handed to me.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, listen, I do think it's something safe to use. However, I do take precautions, and I recommend everybody else take precautions too. I think you're going to get what you are within, and what you have within yourself is going to be attracted to you. So it can be safe.
Dissenting opinions? Disagreements?
I get right to him.
The guy that life was completely ruined by a Ouija board? Anything to say?
You know, I think it's any time that you play with a Ouija, I definitely think it's a roll of the dice of what you're going to get, what you're going to bring through. A lot of hundreds of people have shared their encounters with me with this Zozo thing, and so I'm kind of a guy that kind of warns people that I think they can be dangerous. But I get along with people like Karen, who is more of a proponent of the Ouija, and that's all good. I think fear has a lot to do with what expectation bias, with what's going to go, you know, what you're going to come through. But I definitely think that they can be kind of dangerous.
I think it is what it is. It's a piece of press board. That's all it is. It's like any other tool. You turn on a digital recorder. You turn on a camera. You turn on an app on your iPhone. You're inviting something to come in. And sometimes when you invite things to come in, good things come in, and sometimes, rarely, I believe, there are things that aren't so good that come in. So in the paranormal, I always say that if you don't want to run that minimal risk, then stay the hell out.
All right. Any questions at all? Raise your hands at any time, folks. I'll be looking.
Jeff?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I
please.
just want to add a little bit to that. Some of the people who have problems with the Ouija board don't realize that they have very thin boundaries to the spirit world, or that they might be naturally mediumistic, and they haven't discovered that yet. They haven't experimented with anything else. The Ouija board might be the first tool that they turn to. And actually, with some of these people, it wouldn't matter what sort of tool they use, they might have more intense encounters than a lot of other people. So I think that's where some of the problems come in, that they're kind of ambushed because they don't realize that they're tuned into the spirit world. They're wired differently than a lot of other people. And entities who are out there, they can see this in the energy fields of people, and they can home right in. And so if someone is not protected, hasn't done their homework, isn't well grounded, then those experiences can take a turn for the worse.
Can I just add one thing more? And that is, yes, I will.
I'll turn you off.
You've turned me on many times.
Don't tell Zaffis.
Now you see what life is really like behind the scenes of the paranormal community. Yeah. No, it's this, Rosemary. I think you're right. I've always said that it's the combined energies of the living and the dead that produce the results. If you've got a lot of stuff, dysfunction, disharmony, discord, things like alcoholism or abuse or depression or any of that stuff going on in your life or in the life around you, your environment, that can just be like setting out a buffet for negative entities to come in and attach themselves to you. So if you've got that stuff going on, clean that part of your life up before you start even beginning to delve into the paranormal, or else you are just setting out a buffet for anything negative to come and attach to you. And that can be a part of your environment, historic environment at your property or your location as well.
All right. We have a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm just curious, each of your perspectives, if you can describe sort of the best practices that you've experienced, sort of opening and closing a Ouija board experience.
Best practice for opening and closing a Ouija board experience. Karen, you want to?
I would love to.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I write about this in my books. I talk about it all the time. That's such an important thing to do. I think when you're doing this work with the supernatural or spiritual, there's a stepping into a new space, a sacred reverence space, and making it so, and then also leaving that. So I treat it very much like I would. I used to be a psychotherapist too, and I treat it like I would a psychotherapy session. There's a time and place for it, and then you leave that session, and it's time to close it back down. So having that prayer that we had spoken about earlier in the presentations, I think Dave Schrader talked about it a lot, having some kind of opening to it. I think you have to prepare yourself not just with the prayer, but also mentally, emotionally, physically, on all of your levels, because you're going to attract to you what energy you're feeling. So if you're even feeling sick, I wouldn't recommend the board doing it at that time. But I do something very unique that I haven't heard a lot of people do. I will thank the communication before it even starts, to say in advance that I really appreciate the attempts you will make here today. I have my friends, they always come through now. But I still do that out of respect. And guess what? By the time I end that session, they thank me many times for my ability to communicate with them. So I think you have to have an opening and closing, and that really makes for a better session.
I just want to interject something. I think the very function of a Ouija board, it comes in a box. You keep it in your closet, right? We agree. It's just cardboard and plastic or wood or whatever. But it's a psychic experience. And by taking the box out of the shelf and opening the box, you're going through a process where you're sitting down to have this psychic experience. So and then if you get a little scared or nervous or whatever, you close it, you put it away. It's very much, I mean, would you guys agree that there's no magic in the board, right?
No.
It's the person, it's the people using it. But in using it, you're opening yourself up to something that you wouldn't be open to doing something else. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Absolutely, yeah. Again, with answering your question with opening and closing, again, I feel the same way. I've always felt this way. It's not the board, it's the individuals. We're the catalyst. And we are the ones that establish communication, whether it's a Ouija board, you're doing tarot cards, you're doing seances, any of these are communication. But for some reason or another, you know, Ouija has become one of these most crazy, bizarre things that things occur and happen with. When an individual becomes obsessed with any type of communication, you're throwing yourself wide open. Okay, whether it's, you know, you're sitting there, and even when Rosemary was doing her presentation, I was listening to parts of it, and some of those stories and some of those people, they become very obsessed with the spirit communication. It's a very dangerous thing. I think it's a key factor with quite a few of us within the paranormal field. You have to learn to walk away from things. All right, EVPs. I mean, that's the biggest rage going. And people continuously do it, and they do it, and it causes them issues down the road because they're becoming too obsessed, and you're welcoming spirit in. Thus, you have to learn to do things and watch how you're doing that. Follow your gut instincts. Something tells you something's not lining up right, pull away from it. You know, walk away from it. I still do to this day. Something's not comfortable, I'll walk right away from it. And I just don't have any hesitation with that. I believe very strongly, you know, a positive will always outweigh negative. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I always tell people to bring that influence always with you, that positive energy when you get involved with any type of spirit communication to be able to help protect yourself. And like I said, you have to, it's just like going to work. That's the best analogy I could give you. We work 9 to 5, right? We leave work. Majority of the time, what do? We try to leave it behind. You have to do the same thing when you're doing investigating, communications, and all these different types of things, because you're going to become very obsessed with that, and that's going to leave you very vulnerable, and it's going to leave you wide open. So you got to learn to walk away from it. The funny thing is, you know, I can do that. I can walk out of my office and everything's just totally shut down. But the running joke is my wife says, yeah, it's a guy thing. You guys tune everything out. So, you know, I don't know. But again, it's something I've adapted to and that I do to use as a method of protection in any type of communication.
So I have a question to direct, unless someone else says, Bill, please, Rosemary, yeah, go on. Yep.
Add a little bit to that. I have developed some procedures over the years for just all kinds of engagements with the spirit world, and a lot of them are second nature to me now. So like John, I don't have to go through a procedure to change an energy field. But the process, most important to me, is a daily practice of meditation, which is like going to the psychic gym, the spiritual gym. It buffers your energy field. It strengthens your energy field, which is your natural defense against anything, whether it's unpleasant people or entities that want to latch on to that. And it also gives you foundation, a grounding, whatever your spiritual source is. And daily meditation will do that. When I'm out investigating or using some sort of device, I do open up. And I want to be open so that I can perceive things, that I'm sensitive enough to the environment, but not so open that I'm vulnerable, especially if I'm doing a negative haunting case. And so depending upon who I'm around, I might say things out loud as opposed to saying them mentally. But you do open a door, and you establish a bridge world. It's not like you're inviting things to come into your environment. You're actually operating ideally in a bridge world, so that when that door on your side is shut, it's shut, and nothing is going to stay on the physical side of things. And so when a session is over, I shut that door. I may just shut it mentally to myself or out loud, again, depending on the circumstances. And then also depending upon whether it's just been a benign and kind of okay session, or I'm in a negative haunting case and the energy has been very intense, I will do some other things to keep that door very shut, because entities will track your thoughts. And what happens with a lot of people after they've been involved in a very intense session or investigation is they churn it over mentally. And this enabled that energy, that mental energy, enables some entities to remain active and energized around your space. So in addition to closing the door, then, it's like you were saying, John, you walk out and boom, you're in a totally different space. So I don't think about what I've just been doing. I mean, at some point I have to, because I write about these things and talk about these things, but immediately after, I shut the door, I don't think about it, I don't talk about it. I go home or to my hotel room and put on stupid TV or something that will just distract me mentally in a completely different direction. And then I also pull my chakras down too, because your chakras do open up when you engage with the spirit world. And so I will mentally pull the shutters down. You can ground yourself by pressing your hand against wood or something solid. That also helps to ground energy. But I'll bet Chip has some tricks of the trade too.
It's very interesting. I don't do much of anything.
We know.
I really don't. I have a strong faith-based belief system. I was raised Catholic. I still love the faith, but I don't like the religion very much, but that's another topic. I pray a lot. I have a strong belief in God. I don't care what anybody else believes. That's your stuff, not mine. Nobody's business what you believe, what I believe, what anybody believes. But I kind of go in, naively or stupidly or whatever word you want to use, believing that I've got my A-team on my side, that they're going to stand guard around me and protect me, and I will go in, and if anything negative happens, I'll try to handle it on the spot, and if not, I know who I can call. There's people like the ones sitting up here and others that I know that are going to come in and they're going to help me kick ass, and that's what I'm very confident about. They're going to help me if I get into a bind. But as far as any homina rituals or anything before I go into any situation, I really don't do any of that because, again, I feel pretty, and John, I don't think you do, I've not seen you do any ritualistic stuff very much, and I think that there are those of us who just individually feel like we do what we need to do, and what I need to do is kind of keep that running dialogue in my head that I am protected, I believe in God, I'm okay, and that kind of endless loop belief system going on in my head. So that's kind of the way that I do it. So indeed, I am doing a lot. I'm just doing it almost as an ingrained thing that is a part of who I am intrinsically. And it's with that confidence to know that in the spirit realm, as well as in the physical world, I've got people that are on my side. And that if there's ever a problem, and I've picked up the phone and I've called John. I've picked up the phone and I've called other people and said, got a little situation here, what do I do? And they give me good, sage advice. And the other thing is, as a Catholic, I wear my Catholic bling around my neck, which I feel good about. And my native name should be Travels with Holy Water, because I don't go anywhere without holy water. And people make fun of Catholics a lot, but wait till you need an exorcism.
Don't you find the holy water burns, though, when it hits your skin? It hurts so bad. Burns, can't get it off. Darren, do you have something to add or nothing? Okay.
I agree with Mr. Zaffis. In a lot of
John.
Yeah, John. When I've dealt with so many cases throughout the years with the Zozo phenomenon, people become very obsessed with using the board, and that can lead to problems.
Sure.
And I think that when I first started going public with some of my experiences, I got on YouTube and I become exposed to some of the videos that John had done about the dangers that are involved. And so I think with the whole Ouija culture, I think it kind of harkens us back to a time in our lives where there may have been a monster in the closet. And so you have to be very careful going into these sessions as to, like Karen describes in her books, of what you put out there is what you're going to get back. And I definitely agree with that. And I think that you need to surround yourself with protection anytime that you go into something like that. That's just my opinion, but it's definitely can lead to obsession. I've seen so many people that still contact me because they not unlike an illicit drug cocktail, they're just obsessed with the thing. And so I think that can be dangerous. Like John said, you have to walk away and get away from it. I know I've had to in the past, and so it's that's what it is.
Can I bounce off something that Chip said? And I like the points you made about not having to think about it a lot, and that's the way it is for me too. That if you've done your homework in getting yourself spiritually centered, then it never occurs to you that you're not protected. So a lot of times people ask me, well, what do you do before you go into one of these bad environments? How do you protect yourself? I say, I don't do anything. because I'm already protected because of all of the other spiritual homework that I've done. It never occurs to me that I'm not protected. And all of these other things, they're so second nature that I don't really have to go through them step by step. It's just kind of automatic. And I think that, the more you work in those arenas, the more it becomes that way. It's not that you take it for granted. It's just that you're just living in.
Constant.
It's a constant. It's just being in a different state of consciousness about it too.
So
just one last thing, and
No.
I didn't want to jump ahead.
No.
But that's just again what Rosemary said, and it's just one of those things that if you've been in this arena for a while, you just stay in that state. It's almost like staying in a state of grace. You want to just stay in that, keep yourself constantly in that protected position, not just when you're going in, and maybe you want to layer on a few extra protections when you go into a haunted environment or potentially, negative environment. You might want to say a couple of prayers, and if you sense that, absolutely do it. But I'm a strong proponent of saying whatever you feel puts you in that safe and protected space. As an investigator, that's what you should do, and really, really firmly believe it.
All right. I want to turn the discussion a little bit to grief. When there's a loss, when someone's suffering a loss, someone close to them, how soon is too soon to reach out with, say, a Ouija board? I'll start with you, Chip, and then please, I'd love to hear the others weigh in.
I have clients that have asked me to reach out as soon as a few days after their loved one has passed. And I'm always hesitant to do that because as a traditional counselor and therapist, I know that they're still swimming in that horrible grief that they're going through. I know they're looking for answers and resolution or something. So that's a hard question to answer. I prefer to wait 4 to 6 months after someone dies before I do a reading. Sometimes if I've done them sooner than that, one of two things will happen. Either the energy will push so hard and give a lot of information, or the energy will not be available to give anything much at all. So my suggestion is it's like a transition. The body is dead, the mind is dead, but the spirit lives on. So especially if you've had a loved one who's died tragically by murder, accident, or suicide, or a lengthy illness, then that person needs to recuperate. They need to rest their soul once they get to spirit, is what I've been told, and give them a chance to transition. It's like if you picked up and moved to another location, you need to get settled in. You need to get your footing and learn your environs. So give them a chance too before you try to continually communicate, and don't continually try to communicate with your dead loved ones. They're dead for a reason. They died, you didn't. I do what I do, but I don't continually try to reach out to my mom or my dad or my loved ones. I figure if they want me to know something or they want to communicate with me, they will communicate with me, and I will hopefully hear it. But I'm not constantly trying to reach out to them. I'll be with them someday, but I don't become white noise obsessed with trying to reach your loved ones in spirit. That's not healthy.
I do agree that too soon is not always advisable. Many times people are going to get some sort of communication spontaneously, and I found that one of the major ways is through dreams. And I did a book called Dream Messages from the Afterlife to talk about this phenomenon where the most frequent kind of soon after death communication that a person is likely to get is a real reunion or visit in a dream, a very lucid, intense dream. And these are unfortunately often dismissed by a lot of therapists as just part of the grieving process. But those messages are usually very short. Farewell, I'm okay, don't worry about me. The dead will usually communicate that they don't want us to grieve, even though it's impossible for us not to grieve. And these are very short messages, but very reassuring. But I do agree with Chip that for more extensive communication, it's a good idea to let some time go by. The dead have to adjust to their new environment.
Let me just add one last thing to that, and that is this. I've been told by Spirit that that sleep is as close in life as we ever become to death. That our biorhythms go down, our heart rate goes down, our blood pressure goes down. We pretty much disconnect from the third dimension. and that they find that the easiest time to be able to get through to us because they don't have to go through jump through all the other hoops that we're experiencing if we're awake.
I believe strongly it depends on spirit, depends on circumstances. Spirit will communicate with you. You don't have to reach out to them. We continuously ignore a lot of the signs that are around us. Why? Because we're conditioned that way. I mean, we all grieve over people we've lost, and we always look for that communication. Like Rosemary had said, one of the main things that connected her and I in the beginning with being friends was dreams. And it was an amazing thing that transpired. But there's always telltale signs when we lose people that are close to us. You know, just watch the signs, look for the signs. And I don't believe in pursuing these types of situations. Why? I believe if there's a message, they will get it across to you. In your dream state, they'll knock a photograph over. You'll run into somebody that reminds you of somebody. Do all these things happen, you know, just randomly? No, there's reasons why these things occur, and they happen in our lives, especially when we lose friends or we lose family members. They all just line up, and it's just bizarre because then you take that step back and you think about it. You know, I used to overanalyze everything, just like all of us do in the paranormal. And then after a while, now when these things occur, these things happen, I just look at the big picture and go, okay, you got your point across. And I'm paying attention to what you're trying to relay. And that's the way I look at it. So to me, whether they're physically here or not, I still feel there's always communication. Our loved ones are always, always with us.
I was just going to say, I agree very much with what everybody else here said. I'll say it maybe my own way. I find that people come to me a lot in my open message circles to receive messages from loved ones. I prefer to work in other realms, but I will do that for people because I feel there's a need. And yes, they'll come through if they're supposed to, and if they're not, what I find often comes through is another message from them, from spirit, whether it's a guide or an angel or another loved one on the other side. Even animals, I communicate with animals and spend a lot of time with talking to people's dead animals because you know, we wonder what happens to them too. So it's going to come. I agree with what Johnny said. It comes when you need it. And if people ask me for that, I'll be willing to try. But if it doesn't come through, there'll be probably another message for you you're supposed to receive. I think sometimes we want to hear something that we want. It's like our desire drives our ego, forgetting that there's a bigger picture here, and maybe we're not supposed to have that connection or communication. And I do think we can become obsessed with holding a spirit back where they can't move on, and I call that the earthbounds, and so that happens too. And I've met quite a few of those doing this work, that they sometimes want to move on, or maybe they're stuck, but they feel stuck sometimes because of people, because we hold them back sometimes. So I think it's important to allow that to transpire, allow them to transpire and move on as well, and not get so stuck in that, trying to have that communication.
Right. Any thoughts, Darren?
As far as the grieving process, I've been contacted by quite a few people that that kind of made the mistake of getting on a board shortly after a death of a loved one. And I'll be writing about that with Rosemary on a particular case, and it's happened a few times where some of these Z entities, as I refer to them, these darker entities, will actually pretend to be a deceased loved one. And so, the whole deceptive nature of these particular negative energies, I definitely think that they can try to trick you by pretending to be a deceased loved one. So I would definitely let that grieving process happen, so you're not leaving yourself open to those types of negative energies.
Excellent.
Let's talk about some of the negative stuff, because I think that's where people's minds, the paranormal, often go with Ouija boards, especially. Darren, I'll start with you. What are the telltale signs when, like you said, if someone's trying to trick you that it's dead granny, but it's not? Yeah. What do you think some of the telltale signs are where it starts to go from, wait a minute, I'm not trusting this, to actually something negative?
I think in my experiences, and a lot of those people that have shared with me some of their negative experiences, you actually, the aura and the presence of these energies can be felt not unlike a cold wind. You actually feel the presence of evil, and it's hard to differentiate sometimes because of their deceptive natures, these darker entities. As far as planchette behavior, it's common in a lot of the Zozo encounters is to have that rainbow effect that I called from Z to O, or Z to A, Z A, Z A, M A, M A, M A. You know, me and Rosemary will be getting into some of these Zozo encounters involving Zozo, Zaza, and the Mama entity. You know, this very strange entity that comes through in some of these Zozo sessions. And so I think the planchette behavior can be a telltale sign by the way it moves. If you're speaking to something rather mundane, it's very slow, the communication might be gibberish, it might be slow, and then all of a sudden you have what we call a drop-in communicator, where immediately the planchette behavior becomes much more aggressive and focused. And so I think there are telltale signs that you can, they just kind of warn, you know, it's like sometimes they'll even say, I'm coming, you know, and so it's just, you just never know.
Yeah, Karen, any thoughts, negative?
Yeah, no, I agree with him. There's a sense you get, but I always check it out. We ask for information that you know it's them. And what's most important for any of this work, I believe, is how you feel about it. Does the message resonate with you? You have to use your own internal guidance for this. And you really, I like what they're saying about, you know, it's just intrinsic, this ability to be in your space, or I call it being in your center. But so you have a distinction and ability to decipher if this message is right for you, if it really is your loved one or somebody pretending to be. Because, you know, there are the tricksters, there are the spirits, those who have died who are still stuck in their personality, and they're still that same energy that they were when they were alive, and we have to look at that. So I always ask for confirmation and making sure it's a positive message, because a loved one, most likely, if they're going to come back, they're going to have a message to give you that's going to be of that nature. There have been some that might have said, I was right, or you were wrong, but still there's this, you know that person, you know their behavior, and so you have to really look at that, and how does that feel, that message within yourself?
John, I'm sure you have plenty to add here. What are the
Trust
telltale signs?
no one, trust nothing. No, when your communication.
Good night. Thank you so much for coming. That's not right.
No, when communications go back and forth, just like anybody else, you know, you got to be careful, because that spirit will take advantage of your personal feeling, and they will zoom right in on that. So I do proceed with caution when doing EVP sessions or spirit communication. Any of these things that come through, a lot of good dynamite information can come through, but I take my time. I like to analyze everything, and you know, you just take a look at the big picture, because things will trick you, especially, you know, in my realm. When I deal with the demonology field, I expect it, and it's just the way it goes. But I miss people. I miss a lot of my relatives and things like that, and I don't necessarily reach out. And I'll share one really good, quick story that I think is very prevalent for any of us that lost someone we're close to. I lost a sister. I work with a lot of paranormal groups out there. The University of New Haven, I've been working with them for years and years. And they look at everything very scientific, down to earth, right? They decide to come to the museum one night, and we broke the group up. One was the guys, one were the girls. They were doing all kinds of EVPs and everything. Now, you're talking about kids that are die-hard skeptics. This is what freaked me out with the whole thing. And I'm up in my office, and a couple of them come up, and they go, we got crazy stuff coming through the spirit box. I'm like, oh yeah, well, what do you get, you know? So they were telling me some of it. I went back downstairs into the museum with them, and I went over into the area where about 15 of the kids had this communication going. And some of the things that they were saying just happened to hit home base with me. So as the communication was going back and forth, one of them was trying to establish that it was my deceased sister. And so, and I'm like, okay, but my guard is up and everything. And at this point in time, I'm just like looking and going back and forth. I said, okay, if you're my deceased sister, I says, what is your nickname? Came right through, Dee Dee. And I'm like, why in the world would she be here? Why would she be here? How many of us, especially from my era and prior, we remove flowers from our deceased loved one's grave? How many of us believe in that? We've done that over the years. Well, me, I took a whole bouquet off my sister's grave and brought it home. And didn't think anything about it. And I says, well, if you're Dee Dee, I says, give me some kind of sign, blah, 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 blah. She said, flowers. I go, what freaking flowers, right? So I spun around and I looked, and there was the bouquet, and it was sitting there for a year and a half, and I forgot it was even there. So, you know, some of these things I have to take just like you guys do and anybody else that, is this something on a negative level, or was my sister legitimately trying to reach out and those were key elements that she tuned into? Well, needless to say, I was like a baby. I started crying, and the kids were all upset. They're like, what did we do to you? I go, just shut up and get out of here. You know, but, you know, again, it's things like this I share with people because we all go through these things, each and every one of us. So, and they're important elements of our life with the spirit communication, and I don't always think everything's demonic.
Old man Zaffis, get off my property, you little shits, run.
What do you got that's haunted?
Rosemary, any thoughts? Negative?
It's well known in occultism that spirits will mimic the human dead, and they can put personalities on like a glove and say things that are quite accurate. But if there's some sort of deception going on, the spirit will tip its hand at some point, and that communication will take a noticeable turn, whether it's like what Darren described as a cold wind, or a shift in the energy of the session, smell, the things that are being said, they become darker, more manipulative. But what happens for some of the humans is that by then they've already been emotionally hooked in, and so they overlook a lot of the warning signs. So there is always a shift, and it might not happen right away, but at some point when the entity feels that it's now safe to move into the real motivations and purposes for communicating, it will do so, and the people will overlook it. I want to tell just a little story. You're talking about the flowers, you know, how interesting that was. My co-author in Ouija Gone Wild, Rick Fisher, had some communication with an entity that described herself as a Native American woman, and she lived in a certain part of Pennsylvania along the Susquehanna River, where there were old mining villages, and they're ruined now, but there's a train track that runs through it. And the communication was actually quite pleasant, and it went on for some time. And he wanted, Rick actually wanted to know if he could see this person. So she told him to walk along the railroad tracks to bring a flower for it, and she would leave. She said, well, you can't see me, but I'll leave you an arrowhead. So he goes at the appointed time. They set up a time, and he forgets to take the flower. And he's looking and looking for an arrowhead, no arrowhead. So he goes home very disappointed, gets on the board, and says, well, I was there at the appointed time, but I didn't find an arrowhead. And her answer was, where was the flower? So the next time he went back, he took a rose, and he found an arrowhead.
I just kind of have ongoing agreements, as I said before, with my spirit guides and my guardians that they're going to layer on the protections for me. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to go into any situation and find something that's negative. As a matter of fact, I pretty much anticipate that I'm not going to find anything negative just for that reason, and that nothing negative is going to come at me. I very rarely have anything negative come at me. And as I said before, if I do, I try to handle it on my own. And if I can't, I call on my resources to help me handle it. So again, I'm probably the worst person because I don't worry about those sort of things. I wait for something to happen. I'm always kind of prepared for it, but I'm not anticipating that it's going to happen. I just don't live my life that way.
All right. We have a question over here. Yes?
So, let's pretend I'm like a 12 or a 13-year-old girl. If I wanted to go and get
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah. If I wanted to go and get a board tomorrow, all I would have to do is go to a Toys R Us or a bookstore, and I could pick one up. I mean, there's no age limit, there's no training wheels for this. How do you feel about this being so readily available for anyone, no matter what their age is, to go and purchase one?
Yeah, thoughts about a board game in Toys R Us like this? Is it for kids?
A pink one, too.
Pink one. Ages 8 and up is what it says on the box, by the way. I mean, that's pretty
Me,
young.
myself, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
I don't agree with children getting on Ouija boards. That's my opinion. And I base that on my research with preteens and teens contacting me really scared. And the blasphemous exchanges that have taken place with these people. And so, because I deal with more of the darker side of the Ouija, I run across a lot of these youngsters, and I do believe that it's been designated and marketed towards a younger demographic. And so it's something that I don't necessarily agree with. You know, the children, you have access to them all over the place. It's my opinion. I just don't agree with you know, children getting on Ouija boards and going into these sessions without the knowledge and the information that you might need to protect oneself.
Yeah, I definitely want to answer that because I got my board when I was 8 years old. And I was a practicing Catholic, my whole family was, and I got bored on Christmas Day, December 25th, of course, and went to church afterwards and came home and used my board. I didn't see a disconnect for myself personally, but this is what I want to say about children's behavior. I think was it Robert Mercer covered it today? You tell them not to do it, they're going to find a way to do it. What I tell people is I don't necessarily recommend getting a board for your children, because I do think there's a pros and cons to it. I think I was very fortunate. I don't think that happens for everybody. I think I was very lucky, and I'll share more of that tomorrow. But what I tell people is say, ask your child why, what it is about this board. And what I find, they may just say, I heard you could talk to Grandma who just passed away. Maybe I can have an opportunity to have that one last goodbye because I miss her so much. So I think it's really important that you ask them about it, what it means to them. They may say, oh, I saw that movie, and they look through it and you get to see spirits, you know, the planchette, and it may be something simple as that. Or, and if you're going to say no, they're probably going to go find a way to do it. But I think if you explore that, have that conversation first, and from that conversation, if it's just a curiosity, you could probably have a conversation and cure that. And a lot of kids, you know, and even adults, we're like, hey, this, that, you know, it's the next best thing to do. So it may just be a matter of wanting to mess with it once, or just to understand what it's about and never want to do it again. So I think it's best to really have that conversation first.
I'm definitely against them being for sale in the stores. The way it's handled with kids playing with these things. Again, I'm even against young children being involved with the paranormal. Amen. They're too young. They need to learn. Studying the paranormal is one thing, but kids jumping into it and starting to do a lot of things opens it up. They're too vulnerable.
Then what do we use for bait, John?
Rosemary.
Okay.
I throw Rosemary. She attracts everything. She'll bring all this back. But anyways, you know, again, studying and learning the field is one thing, but kids, you know, jumping into it unprepared. I'm no different than anybody else. When I was a kid, you told me not to do something, I turned around and did it. I'm no different than anybody else. So again, today I think we have that knowledge base, and you know, there's a lot of info out there where kids do get to understand and see things, and you know, the pros and cons to getting involved with some of the stuff. So there's more knowledge out there to brace for the kids to embrace. But again, kids are going to be kids.
I guess I have mixed feelings about it myself because my first exposure to the board came at about the same age as Karen. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I worked it with my older sister, and we just entertained ourselves. Nothing bad ever happened. We just played and had a good time. And I think that in many cases, children who try out a board, nothing's going to happen. And it's when they get obsessed with it, or I agree with what Karen said. You know, you really need to know why your kid wants to do it. And if they are trying to, for example, contact grandma, then you've got to be involved with them in a different kind of way. It is. I don't think the Ouija board should be banned from stores. I think we just have to be prudent parents and know what our kids are doing, and pay attention to also how their behavior may change. If, like some of the cases that John and I covered in Haunted by the Things You Love, involved young people who got very obsessed with contacting the spirit world, and their parents were oblivious to it for whatever reason. And by the time the problem became so severe that dramatic intervention had to be taken, a problem could have been averted much earlier if the parents had been more proactive in terms of how their children were spending their time. It's not an easy question to answer, just black or white.
I started consulting the Ouija board when I was probably 12, and I'm curious to know, because I haven't sat in on all the lectures, but I'm really curious to know at what point the Ouija board, and you may know this, or someone on the panel may know this, or someone in the audience, when did the Ouija board stop being just a game?
1971.
And that was which board?
No, that was The Exorcist.
Okay.
That's 73.
If that's...
The book was 71. Some of
Yeah,
us are readers.
that's true, but yeah. Oh, some of you guys read.
Boom.
The movie was 73.
Wait a second. Let's just use this term, bitch. Let's go on then. No, if 71 is the actual date, then this, you know, we consulted the Ouija board in the mid-60s, you know, mid to late 60s. And the deal is, we did not even consider the fact that we were going to get a negative response from the Ouija board. That was not a fear that had been instilled in us. We didn't even think about that. We just thought we were just whatever we get on this. We didn't even entertain the idea that Pazuzu was going to come through the Ouija board.
Bless you.
Thank you. Mazel tov. So, you know, I don't know when that shift changed exactly and perception, because in The Exorcist, I remember that scene. It's a quick hit.
Yeah.
It's such a quick hit between Burston and Blair. And, you know, you almost miss it. But then with Witchboard and the other movies that have come out, and even if you watch the news, if you watch things on the news, you're going to get the bad stuff. You're going to hear all about the bad stuff, but the good things that happen, the heartwarming stories, every time that someone plays with the Ouija board and frickin' nothing bad happens, nobody's going to write about those. We like sensationalism. We like to be, you know, scared or you know, the boogeyman coming, even though we say we don't. I'll mention the Ouija board on social media, and people are like, oh my God, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
How do you spell?
She's taking notes. She'll figure it out, right? You'll figure out how to... And, you know, and it's like I said before, it's a piece of press board, and you know you're probably not going to get anything. And if you do, put the friggin' thing away. Put it in a box. Put it back on the shelf. Burn it if you want to burn it. Give it to your cousin or your neighbor or whatever. I don't care, but
Ship it to Zaffis.
give it. It'll go in a museum. But if you're afraid of doing something, or you've had a bad experience of doing something, good common effing sense says don't do it anymore.
Right. Oh, we have a question right over here. Yes, ma'am.
It's really not a question. It's more of a advice. So, not too long ago, I was sleeping, and in my dream, it was like a guy. He climbed through my window, started caressing me and everything, and
I like where this is going. Go ahead.
it actually tried to rape me.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I actually fought him off. And of course, it was like this last blow that I did with my left arm that kind of like made him just like disappear. And I woke up with the scars and even the bump from when I hit him in his head or my wrist. And like, it's just, I wanted to know like, what was the best way to like handle it? Like,
You did handle it.
Yeah.
You kicked ass.
That's right. Did everyone hear her? Just so she had a dream encounter where an entity actually came and attempted to rape her, and she fought it off physically and woke up and actually felt a bump on her arm from the fight. So
To me, that actually says that you're more empowered than you give yourself credit for. That was a way of you being told. And mom's looking at her and going, I told you so. But that's exactly it. I think everybody up here would agree that metaphorically or actually was your way of saying that I can kick ass and take names if that was them. Your guides and guardians probably let you experience that so that you would step into your own power.
Concur 100%. I agree.
we have a question over here.
Well, the last is a comment that's what parents are for, but as a kid, I would never mess with the paranormal. However, it seemed like at times the possibility existed of the paranormal crossing over to me. And I put, from age 8 up, I put in a lot of study. With that, my father was the Christian. I took him as the caution. My mother was the faith. So between the two, it allowed me to help work and try to figure things out.
Sure. Right. Ma'am, did you have a question back there? Yes?
I do. I mean, you mentioned over and over, I have a lot of experience operating Ouija board, but it's the original text messaging system, as was pointed now.
Right.
And we all know most people can't spell without spell check. And I'm just curious if you see shifts in the vernacular or what's coming through.
It's a great question.
Spelling.
Yeah.
How do you,
Yeah.
how would you rate that?
That's a wonderful question. Mike Brody, a paranormal comedian, has said, like, pretty soon we're going to start seeing LOL, JK, right, on the board and stuff like that. So her question was, are we seeing a shift in the vernacular of the Ouija board? I mean, is it formal or is it slang?
I get slang a lot. They
Yeah.
start creating code in terms of, I go by my initials a lot when I text messages. Everybody knows me as KAD. They call me CAD. That's my pet name on the board to my spirit guides. But they have said to me LOL before, and I said, how did you get that? And they tell me, well, that's not how you guys speak in your community now. So I've had them speak to me in other languages too, Spanish specifically. But yeah, it changes, and I find that the longer I work with some of my friends on the other side, they're all my friends. I've known them for like 20 plus over years, and they develop their own kind of way of communicating with me and their own sense of words that they will use. Where other ones may come through as somebody else's spirit guide or loved one, they'll speak in that language that they know. But I have seen them get even better in terms with different people I work the board with, where that energy actually changes their messages as well as the vocabulary and their ability to use bigger or smaller words. And I find it has something to do with, of course, ourselves and my partner. And so I could be speaking to the same spirit guide with another person and get maybe shorter sentences, where with another person, because their vocabulary is pretty large, we end up getting paragraphs. So it really depends upon our energy, and that affects it as well. That's a great question, by the way.
I have a quick question too, kind of related to that. Has anyone ever heard of a case where 2 or more people using the board have received a message in another language that they don't speak, where they wrote it down and they wrote letter for letter and then later had it translated? Have you ever heard of a case like that? I haven't.
I will say, one time I was working with the board, and I had it was actually a deceased person that came through and started spelling MCL, and I'm like, this is gibberish. It turned out it was a date. And I don't
Roman
go
numerals?
around speaking in Roman numerals. I
Yeah.
think about what was 100, what was 1,000. I had to think that through, and I go, oh my God, that's like 1145. And we went on and had a whole conversation, but it was interesting that it came through like that, where I wasn't like, I don't even write like that.
Right. Darren, did you?
In my sessions, I can remember, even 30 years ago when I first started getting into Ouija sessions, that it would be very common for it to use abbreviations. And when I started writing about the Zozo phenomena, I remember talking about these messages and it being not unlike today's modern text messaging, where it'll, instead of spelling ATE, that you might have ate something, it'll actually use the number 8.
Yeah.
And so a lot of abbreviations. And what I find interesting is when you're on a board and you misspell a word that you would never misspell. And so what is it about ideomotorized action that caused that forced inaccuracy? And so it's fascinating to me when that happens.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
I've also seen a lot of change in vernacular in recent years with text kind of abbreviations, contracted words, and suggested words. And having worked the board with Karen, I mean, the lightning speed. The planchette really moves at lightning speed for you. And what happens with Karen is that we can anticipate the words. It'll start to spell something out, and you get the mental impression of what the rest of the word is and say it out loud, and then the planchette will go to yes or no. And I've used that technique myself since experiencing that with you, to just, it's another shorthand way, but you get a mental impression of what the word is. And I also wanted to say something about the foreign language too, Jeff. In ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, which is where you're dealing with voice, and it's often real-time two-way. There are, to my knowledge, let's put it this way, it has not been documented in the literature that any foreign language is spoken that nobody understands, that there is somebody in the room who understands that language. And I haven't come across mystery languages myself on the board.
Chip, any Pig Latin ever come through for you?
Oh, nay.
Ixnay on the Ord A?
Oh, nay, igpe atlay.
All right, A.
And I'm the one that's got to say is this: I'm going to duck out of here because I've got to be back at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I've got dinner reservations, so I'm leaving this stage right now.
It's actually 7 o'clock, folks. Did you have another question?
Yes. What's the most profound message you've gotten, or the biggest revelation that the Ouija board has told you?
10 seconds each. Go.
I'll tell you mine when you come back this evening about my experiences with Ouija Board.
All right. Thank you, Chip. We'll finish on this thought. Yep.
No profound revelations, because usually the board is being used within the context of some sort of situation. So there are messages that are meaningful to somebody involved, but I haven't gotten any big pronouncements about the state of the universe.
Right.
I have never really gotten anything significant when being in the company of the Ouija being played. So, I mean, other ways, yes, but not necessarily through Ouija.
I have received many. They blow my mind, and I'll talk about it some more tomorrow. And I write about it in my books. I'm blown away and amazed every time I sit down at the board and use this communication.
I think with me, the most profound thing that's ever happened is when me and one of my best friends, we asked how he was going to die. And